Let's step into the marketplace, shall we? This is the report for Tuesday trading. Is Wednesday, the third trading day of the week, and the Nigerian stock market still in negative territory. But the unlisted securities sidestepped the NSE, while the debt market was piping hot in a week busy with activities at the fixed income space. Temple Ashaju is live to us from the Nigerian Stock Exchange, our business correspondent, our studios down there. Temple, good morning. Let's get this discussion started about the state of the market. On Tuesday, stocks remain tepid, 0.53%.
Correct, Bosun. Really tepid. It's about the third consecutive session or second consecutive section of loss that we are seeing now. And of course, you know how it is. It's still the political uncertainty that has been driving the market in recent times. The whole interest of investors that we saw in the banking names before now have now depreciated. And of course, that tells you that investors are selling down. They are now saying, in fact, I'm not too sure people are really making profits. You just want to get back your capital so you don't lose that. And if you look at how the equity capitalization ended yesterday, it lost some 61.72 billion naira, and that represents some 0.53% margin of loss. And that's, well, we're still positive in terms of the key benchmark index, which is still at 31,178.71 points there. But then you see the month-to-date performance that had depreciated to some kind of a marginal level has now grown to some 0.80%. So we're seeing some losses in the market. Yesterday, activity level was a bit positive, and that's because the sell side was more than the buy side of the market. You got volume yesterday at 359.5 million units, and that represents some 61% rise in the level of in the volume of shares that were traded yesterday. If you compare with what we saw on Monday, value was also positive. It rose actually by some 4% to 1.91 billion naira. The trades for yesterday, or the deals basically, was 3,773 in total. If you look at the sectoral performances, you've got the banking names doing very, very negative. Basically, all the sectors yesterday were bearish. The banking names were basically down yesterday. Zenith Bank was down 2.13%. FCMB was down the most by 6.54% because FCMB was one of the companies that a lot of investors and traders have been watching until these change in trend lately. At the point in time, FCMB crossed 2 naira. A lot of people expected it, to stay within the support level of 1 naira 98 kobo, but they then crossed 2 naira at some points to some 2 naira 4 kobo or thereabout. It provided actually an opportunity for some investors to take profit. However, when this uncertainty came in, it started depreciating in numbers. So yesterday lost the most among the banking names. Access Bank fell next, some 4.72%. That's a company that is, carrying out some kind of mergers and acquisition deal with Diamond Bank. And yesterday, this same company notified the Nigerian Stock Exchange that it has come up with its financial year, audited financial statement for the year 2018, and it has submitted that to the Central Bank of Nigeria, after which they will now make that available to the Nigerian Stock Exchange for the investing public to know. Quite a number of banks basically dotting their I's and crossing the T's at this point for their financial year 2018 results, which will start trickling in any moment from now, possibly this week or next week. Will then they'll get into the earnings season proper. FBN Holdings was also down yesterday. Fidelity Bank did some 4.66% loss yesterday, just as the Tier 1 Bank, Guarantee Trust Bank, lost 1.31%. Among the banks, only a few banks gained yesterday, and a few of them also remained unchanged. I think Diamond Bank was about the only bank that really gained yesterday. Stanbic IBTC was a company that investors were selling down on at a point in time, but somebody from nowhere came in and then bought up all of those, mopped up those mess, and so it ended up closing flat eventually. But if you look at the consumer goods segment, the major names, the major active names in that sector also depreciated. Honeywell Flour, Dangote Flour, Nigerian Breweries, Dangote Sugar, and Flour Mill, these were all down yesterday. And that's how we ended up having some 56 basis points loss yesterday. Industrial goods remained flat. WAPCO experienced a bit of mixed trading. It was a zigzag at a point, and then it ended up not impacting on the industrial good at all. Dangote Cement was also static. Insurance segments, we saw less interest in linkage assurance, 9.6% loss. Oil and gas, we saw Etana PLC and O&O as the two key companies that dropped. Just generally yesterday, if you look at the market breadth, which measures the sentiment of investors in the market, it was really, really battered. We saw some 30 losers yesterday versus 14 gainers in the market. NAMET released its Q1 2018 results, and it was really, really negative. And so that made NAMET and academic press as the top losers, the worst hit yesterday in terms of the top losers in the market. NAMET dropped some 10%. Academic press also dropped some 10%. In the oil and gas segment of the market, we saw that it was only O&O and Etana PLC that investors had more interest in yesterday. They sold down on Etana PLC, down by some 3.37%. Sold down on O&O, which was also down by almost 1%, but it's still trading around 5 naira 10 kobo after investors exchanged some 1.43 million units of its shares yesterday. Bosun, you referenced NASD OTC as the only side of the market that had some gains yesterday. As I told you, the market equities is really tight at this point in time. So when you're able to sell down, you want to quickly move to somewhere, seek for some kind of a safe haven. And NASD at this point in time is kind of considered as a safe haven in the market. It was up yesterday by some 0.73%, but really, really weak. We saw that volume came in at just 253,180 naira. And that's after some 10,220 units of shares were basically traded yesterday. Let's go to the fixed income markets where we saw bonds yesterday. Bonds traded relatively flat, but then with a bit of bullish tilt. We saw players awaiting today's auction where some 150 billion naira in total is to be offered across some of the tenors. I think 2023, 2025, and of course 2028 will be reopening. February 28 security in particular will be reopened by the Debt Management Office today. So you have a lot of investors that are just holding tight to their cash and looking to release that into the primary markets today where they should be able to make more money. But yesterday, average yield shed some 4 basis points to 15.11%. We've got demands across the short end of the curve, the mid, and of course the long end of the curve. Across the short end of the curve, we saw some 10 basis points. The mid end of the curve, we saw just 1 basis point, which tells you that it was relatively flat yesterday. But when you go to the long end of the curve, you saw a similar trends there, some 2 basis points contraction. You look at the numbers, you've got July 2021 as one of the key securities that investors watched yesterday, down, narrowed some 21 basis points. January 2026 also narrowed some 10 basis points, while July 2024 shed some 5 basis points yesterday in the market. And if you look at how it was priced yesterday, at the FMDQ OTC was at 82 naira 50 kobo, and we saw some 1.40 billion naira worth of securities traded there, and all of that was in 4 deals. But generally, we saw 20 deals in the market, and that was valued at 6.80 billion naira. Typically, we know that once the Debt Management Office offers the 50 billion naira for 2023 security, 50 billion naira for 2025 paper, and of course 50 billion naira for the 2028 security, there will be more interest today. I mean, a lot of investors will be waiting to see how the stop rates will come in, because a lot of analysts are expecting that the stop rates will be within the 10 to 30 basis points band, which won't really, really be too much. Well, again, a lot of investors or traders rather, and treasurers of banks and some of the key players are currently bearish about the demands that may come in from the offshore investors, given the kind of uncertainties that we're having in the system. It looks like that is beginning to taper now, because we know that the NJC has now kind of given the 2 key judges concerned in this political game right now some kind of 7-day ultimatum to react to respond.
Temple, Temple, if I may cut in here very quickly, the political environment, of course, is there. But if we just step back to the equities market, quite a lot of news and earnings will start coming through, and I'm sure part of the sentiments for investors relates to news that they get outside the political circuits in the mainstream economy and on companies listed on the exchange. For example, PZ Cussons, based in the UK, yesterday says there's a 13% profit warning, pre-tax profit warning, because of challenging situations in markets in Africa and in particular in Nigeria. I'm sure news like that were part of what was responsible for investors' reaction to that news from PZ Cussons in the UK. But Temple, will come back to you later on the program to take you through, to take us through today's trading day. But of course, very important, some of those notice of board of directors meetings and the closure period for some of the companies like Transnational Corporation, Nigerian Breweries, and all of that. Thank you very much from the Stock Exchange Studios, Temple Ashaju, business correspondent. Let's come back to you. The oil and gas sector is a big space. We have a very big conversation when we come back in 2 minutes. This is your Business Morning.